Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our Self-Directed IRA Saturday. I'm really glad to be joining you guys on Saturday. I normally am only here for the Tuesday classes, but I love coming out for the Saturday ones because there's always a bunch of people and the engagement's really great. So thank you for joining with us. I know it's freezing outside, so it's probably great to be inside, stay warm, and get some education. Real quick, I'm just going to run through a couple of the classes that we have always going on if you're looking for some more education. So like I mentioned, on Tuesday and every Saturday, we have our weekly webinars at noon. So you can tune in, watch online. If you can't make it, we do send the replay if you register. So you will get that newsletter follow-up. So that's a really great way to still kind of get a little bit of that class, even if you can't make it. But we also have them on our YouTube and on our Facebook page. We have a whole repertoire of classes there dating all the way back from 2016, maybe even before that. So there's a lot of education in there if you're looking for some of the past classes that you weren't able to attend. But in addition to the educational classes, you'll see right here in the left-hand corner, we have our virtual networking happy hour as well. So if you don't want really any education, just want to network, meet people, grow your network and find some, people to do your deals with, the fourth Wednesday of every month, we do host a online virtual happy hour at 6:30 p.m. But if you want to come out, you want to join us, not really into the whole virtual thing, we would love to have you in person in our office for our big monthly evening event. So the Self-Directed IRA Social takes place in Houston, Austin, and Dallas, all on the consecutive first, second, and third Tuesdays of the month. So you'll see Houston's the first, second is Austin, and Dallas is the third one. But those are really, really great. If you had ever attended our $1 trillion investment mixer, the social is in replace of that. So really big, really great evening networking events for you guys to come out. They are growing every year. Every month. I think last one was in Dallas and it had around 60 people and that was on a slow day. So we'd love to have you come out and get registered. But it is, as you can see here, it is a hybrid experience. So if you'd like to join online, you can do so as well. But we'd love to have you come out because we've got beer, wine, food, all the good stuff in our office. And then while you're there, if you have friends that are looking to start a self-directed IRA, you can actually earn credits for yourself and for them by telling them about Quest. All you have to do is refer them to us. So you will get a $25 credit towards your account, and they'll also get one too, just to kind of kickstart their investing journey, a little bit of a help for them, just simply by telling them that you know about Quest. So all they have to do is put your name on their application when they get started, and they will get those credits, and so will you. And then this is probably my favorite event that we have coming up, and this is Major League Investing. A couple of years ago, we did a really, really fun event called March Madness, how to do a slam dunk deal with a small account. So we kind of wanted to keep the sports theme, have some fun events for the spring, and we're doing how to hit a home run deal. It's going to be baseball themed. We actually have a bunch of speakers coming out for all the different offices. Dallas's will actually have our speaker that we have today, Miss Nancy Wallace Labs. She'll be there sharing one of her stories. But even if you can't make it out to our office, we would love, love, love to have you register so at least you can get that replay. This one, unfortunately, will not be streamed online, so you do have to come out, join us for this lunch and learn at 11:30 to 1, either on the 3rd, the 10th, or the 17th. But do come out. We've got speakers giving case studies, about 4 for each city. And then we also have a special guest judge umpire who will help vote who has the best case study along with the help of the audience. So really, really participant, lots of engagement, but that's going to be a really good one to help kind of share some new strategies with you guys, hopefully. And then if you guys are in San Antonio, just going to share this real quick. We actually have a lunch and learn for you guys that that's coming up. So we're not too much in the San Antonio area, but we are trying to get out there more. We know a lot of you guys have asked us to come speak, so we're doing it for you. If you want to get registered, please do. This lets us know that you love to see us out in San Antonio, and if we get some good attendance, then we'll be out there more. So let us know, get signed up. That's March 24th at the Norris Conference Center. It's going to be a basics all about how you can use your self-directed IRA to amplify your retirement. And then I won't take up too much of your time. The last slide that I'll share with you is the biggest and the best, and that is the Quest Expo. I know that you've probably heard us talking a lot about it right now. That's because we really want to get you excited. This is by far the best event that we put on all year. It's the best, it's the biggest, and it's probably the most education that we can combine in a 3-day span anywhere else that I can think of. Honestly, we bring out over 50 to 60 different speakers and vendors to provide you with knowledge, but also tools so that as you're starting or as you're growing your business, you've been doing it for a while, you have all the tools and the resources to help you as you're learning these strategies as well. So there's going to be everything from, basics all the way to really advanced strategies. We're covering notes, private entities, single family, multifamily real estate. We're bringing crypto people in because we will be doing crypto by then. All sorts of tax planning, retirement strategies. Really, it's the best event. I can't talk enough about it. Be sure to join in and be a part of this one with all the other attendees that are going to be there. Last year, we had about 800, maybe 700 to 800 people there. So we'd love to have you at this one. The pre-sale tickets are going on right now, but they will not last for long. So do be sure to get them. You can scan this QR code and that'll take you right to the website where you can get either those general admission or the VIP while they're in early bird. So if you want to get in contact with us, this is how you can do so. Feel free to call us, give us a chat on our website, email us, or just scan this QR code to get your scheduled consultation just right there ready to go. And then that's it. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to bring up Nancy Labs to share her presentation. Nancy is one of our speakers that we have quite often because we absolutely love her. She shares all sorts of strategies from, how to invest with small dollar IRAs to, anything else that you can think of. So Nancy, without further ado, thank you so much and take it away.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sarah. I'm excited to be back in 2022. Quest Trust Company. Love doing presentations for you guys. And, I love talking about investing with I have SDIRA up here, but I'm really talking about small dollar IRAs. And I owe everything I know from attending the Quest Trust Company's Lunch and Learns. So there's just packed full. So a little shout out to Quest. The Expo is awesome. And I'm super excited to be participating in the upcoming home run special because I was on stage with some pretty heavy hitters, including Eddie Gant and Eddie Speed. And, those guys won, and that's okay because they've been doing it a lot longer than I am. But I'm telling you, I'm bringing a case study to this one that we'll see if I win the round. So, but without further ado, what I wanted to, I get asked all the time, how I work a lot with people who have less than $50,000 in their self-directed IRA. And generally, on an average of the people I've been doing this with now for the last few years, the average is about 15 to 16,000. But what people get really excited about is when I talk about, how you can invest with 3,000 or 5,000. So and one of the questions I get asked is, well, how do you buy a property with more than one IRA? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want to say up front that I have a lot of documents in this presentation. So it's not as fun as I normally am with all the pictures and everything. But because I can't see you all, if I say something funny, because I know you can't see my face, just give me an LOL in the chat and Sarah will share that with me later. And then if you have any questions about what I'm going over, because some of it gets pretty in the weeds, which is what I teach, just go ahead and put in the questions in the chat, and I'll stick around as long as it takes to answer the questions. So without further ado, let's get into how to buy one property with multiple SDIRAs, or your self-directed IRA. Now, this is a great strategy for retirement. If to build your retirement, I call investing with your self-directed IRA actually a wealth building strategy. And the really awesome thing is that it can be any type of self-directed IRA, the traditional, the Roth, the SEP, the health savings account, the education, the checkbook IRA. But it has to be with a custodial company, like Quest Trust Company. You just can't have it with Fidelity and go, okay, I'm going to go buy a property and I'm going to combine these IRAs. Now, I always like to say this up front because this is my disclaimer. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. That you do need to consult your financial advisor, CPA, or tax attorney prior to investing with your self-directed IRA. And always, always, always conduct your own due diligence on every property, every borrower, and every investing opportunity. And the presentations that I'm doing today and I do for Quest are based on my real life investments by me. So these are like case studies, if you will, that I teach to other people. So when I'm looking to buy a property, now I'm a real estate investor. I've been investing for I'm creeping up on 2 decades. I mean, I did start when I was young, right? Not really, but no matter what deal I'm looking at, I look at 3 things all the time: location, where that property's at, the value, and my exit strategy. And I'm a firm believer that you need to have, one at least, but I usually try to have at least 2 exit strategies for every deal that comes across my desk. And I kind of get into, different kinds of investing with self-directed IRAs. I mean, you can do flips, and you can do Airbnb, and you can do long-term rentals, and, you can do owner finance. So what we're going to be talking about today is how I come to my conclusions, if you will, on when I'm looking at a property. So the first thing is the location. So I do invest outside. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I invest in what I call secondary markets, just because it's so competitive. I mean, if you're a real estate investor and you're trying to get a deal in today's market, God bless you is all I got to say, because when you have buyers willing to pay 10, 20, I just saw a post the other day where somebody paid $100,000 over the price of the house. It's tough to get a deal. So, but when I do invest, like I said, in secondary markets. So like Wichita Falls, Corsicana, Granbury. I haven't gone out of state, but if I was going to go out of state, I want to make sure that I have trusted boots on the ground, like putting eyes on the property. I have bought property sight unseen, but that's because I'm so familiar with the area and the price I'm getting, and I've been doing this for a while. But if you're new, you want to make sure you get eyes on the property, and especially when you're using your self-directed IRA, because you don't want to risk, you never want to risk your money, but you certainly don't want to risk your self-directed IRA. And then what do you know about the area? And the reason that I say that is because when you're talking about exit strategies, you got to know what the area supports, right? So if you're into Airbnb, like Airbnb is really hot right now. So if you're into Airbnb, well, if you have a property, that's probably not going to make a good Airbnb in an area that nobody goes to, right? So those are the things that go through my mind. And then I look at the value, and I'm looking for appreciating areas. Now, right now, if you buy property, it's pretty much going to appreciate. I mean, I could think of a few places that it wouldn't, but if you're in Texas anywhere, it's like all the properties are appreciating. And then, of course, I look at the after repair value, the cost of repairs, and cash flow. And I'm going to circle back to all of this because when I make the decision to use my self-directed IRA, so to kind of take you how I think, when I do marketing to get deals, I don't just go into it going, oh, I'm going to use my self-directed IRA. But what I always am thinking is, can I use my self-directed IRA? Because depending on what you're doing with the property, whether it's a rental, short, long-term, owner finance, I want to build that basically tax-free money until I take a distribution into, so I want to put as much money in my IRA as I can. And so I'm always looking for ways, one of my exit strategies is, can I buy that with my self-directed IRA? Oh. So my exit strategies, so my go-to exit strategies are buy and hold, long and short-term rentals, owner finance, flip, and wholesale. Now, the last two are a little bit harder to do with a self-directed IRA, but you can do it. With a wholesale property, you can actually do what's called an option contract, so there's ways to do that. The flip is a little bit more difficult, I think. I know people that do it, but only because, and I'm going to say this in another slide, but all the funds that have to do with your self-directed IRA when you're purchasing property, it has to go in and it has to go out. Meaning, like, so you buy a house and you want to flip it. Well, all the repairs, the utilities, the insurance, all that money, all those expenses have to flow through your self-directed IRA. And so if you are on a time frame to do that, it might be kind of hard to get all the paperwork done and have it go in and out of your self-directed IRA. But the rules that I'm going to talk about. Now, I talk about due diligence because, as with any real estate investing or investing that you're doing, there's going to be some risk. So due diligence to me is minimizing my risk. So when I'm making my decision, now we're still in the process of, okay, what is Nancy going to do with this property she has under contract, right? So I'm going to look at, is it going to be a rental? Is it going to be an owner finance? What kind of repairs do I need? How much is that going to cost? Where's the location? Location now comes into play because do I have to hire a property manager if it's out of my area that I can't drive to? I'm going to be looking at pictures of the property. And then I am a real estate broker here in Texas, and I have access through the MLS of a report called RPR. It stands for Real Property Report, and it's only accessible by realtors. And it's a great tool because that report tells me, like, is this property in a flood zone? It gives me appreciating and depreciating areas around the area. And it's just a good tool so that when I'm analyzing my deal, I can say, okay, these numbers make sense for this strategy and they don't make sense for this strategy. And since I have this strategy now, I can now come to the conclusion I'm going to use my self-directed IRA. Now, when I get the property under contract, so that's the first thing I do, because a deal is a deal, right? And then what I'm going to do with it, so I get the property under contract, and then I start the paperwork process because if I'm not going to use my self-directed IRA, I don't need all these other paperworks, right? And there is some paperwork involved, which I'm going to walk you through screen by screen, if you will. So the first thing is you have to have a contract to purchase the property. And then there's a form called the Direction of Investment. You'll have to have a deed of trust. The settlement statement is just your HUD statement and amendments as needed. Now, I'm going to walk through all of these for you so you don't have to go, well, what is she talking about here? So before I get into the paperwork, let's talk about the rules. And it's up to you to know the rules of how you can invest with your self-directed IRA. If you don't do it correctly, there could be huge tax implications. And so you have to know what the rules are. Now, again, I'm not a CPA, but you can go to a lunch and learn, and they'll kind of just, Quest will say, these are the rules when you're investing with your self-directed IRA. So you have to know the rules. So a question I get asked a lot is, so let's say that you have $50,000 in a traditional IRA, and you have a property that you want to buy for a rental, and that contract price that you're getting it for is $150,000. So people are like, well, can I use the $50,000 as a down payment and go get a loan? No, you can't. Can I, let's say you had 100. So the self-directed IRA has to own it in whole. The purchase price has to be within the amount you have in your self-directed IRA. So just for that example, what if you don't have $50,000 in or $150,000 in your self-directed IRA? Well, maybe your husband, wife, and child have a 50,000 each, where you can combine those self-directed IRAs to make that purchase. You don't combine the funds, so they stand alone as single investments. And I'm going to show you how you exactly write that up on the paperwork for Quest. So this is kind of going on to that. So to buy with your self-directed IRA, you have to purchase in whole or combine with qualified member accounts. So that example I just gave you of 3 people with $50,000, it can't be your best friend. It has to be what they call a qualified member. So my husband and I, we each have a couple different IRAs, and we're able to use those to buy properties. You can also use them to be a private money lender. On other presentations I've done for Quest, I actually take a group of people who have different amounts in their self-directed IRAs, 6,000, 10,000, 30,000, and I put them together and they're become a private money lender, which that's another presentation, another case study for another day. But you can go to my YouTube channel, and I've done several videos on how you can become a private money lender. Now, the self-directed IRA has to make all the payments and receive all the income. So basically, it's considered what it's called a hands-off transaction. So remember when I said, like, if you bought a rental, a long-term rental, so what happens is your self-directed IRA owns it. You, like Nancy, does not own it. My company does not own it. The self-directed IRA holds the title to the property. Any income that I have from a tenant has to be paid to the self-directed IRA. It cannot be paid to Nancy, and then Nancy turns around and pays the IRA. So you have to have something set up so that you can have the tenant pay. For example, they would send a check to Quest Trust Company, or it would be made out to Quest Trust Company for the benefit of, Nancy Wallace Lobbs, IRA number, blah, blah, blah. And then let's say my property taxes, I have to pay them at the end of the year. So I would have to put in a request to Quest Trust Company to say, hey, send, X number of dollars from my self-directed IRA for the benefit or for the payment of the property taxes on that property. So the reason I'm kind of going over that is when I'm thinking of an exit strategy, this is why I personally don't like to do flips in a self-directed IRA. Not that you cannot do that. I don't want to say that. It's a personal preference because of the income and expenses. So all income and expenses must flow through the self-directed IRA. It cannot come to your company and then you pay the self-directed IRA. It has to go through that. And there's paperwork to do that. So knowing that rule, if you will, helps me determine what type of exit strategy when I get a property under contract. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the documents. And one thing I do want to stress, highly, highly stress, I've done many of these deals. And what I can tell you is if you are working with a title company who does not understand investing and buying real estate with a self-directed IRA, you need to find another title company because there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of back and forth. And I'm going to kind of explain that back and forth here in a minute. But basically, once you put the property under contract, then you have to, get Quest Trust. In this case, it's Quest Trust Company, and then the title company, and everything has to go back and forth for make sure it's, written out correctly, that it's titled correctly. And I'm going to show you some tips, like if you're going to do this to make it a little bit easier on the folks that are reviewing your paperwork, including the title company. But I have worked with title companies that had no idea about the paperwork, and they delay closing. They make mistakes when they write up the warranty deed and the title paperwork, and they just don't get it. I even asked a title company. I had a seller that wanted to just use this one particular title company. And so when I told them I was going to be using a self-directed IRA, and remember, most title companies have an attorney on board. And what did I say? I'm not a financial planner. I'm not an attorney. And they said, well, yeah, we can do that paperwork if you show us what to do. Well, I didn't want to use that title company because, first of all, I was, paying for on this particular transaction, I was going to have to pay their fees. And I didn't feel like, the attorney that would drop the paperwork, they didn't know what they were doing. And if I had to show them, then that would be like, wouldn't that be like me practicing law, which of course I can't do because I'm a real estate broker and I'm not an attorney. So again, how I strategize, I just kind of want to walk you through how I'm thinking so that when we start talking about exit strategies, you're like, oh, okay, I get that, right? So location, availability of current inventory, repairs, I'm looking at sold prices, I'm looking at rental prices, I'm looking at the purchase price and my return on investment over time. Because when you do invest with a self-directed IRA, it's usually you should be in it for the long haul. You could be a private money lender and do 6 months. I've done properties where, I've bought it and I've sold the note after a couple years. But, I have some properties that I've purchased where they have, 15-year notes because, I want to build that income into my self-directed IRA. So after I have determined what exit strategy and I want to use my self-directed IRA, then I start on the paperwork. Now, put this funny, I'm kind of into funny dog and cat pictures lately. If you follow me on social media, you'll kind of notice I've been putting some stuff out there. I don't know, it makes you laugh. And, sometimes you just need a good chuckle. So it's not as messy as I'm portraying it here. It's actually much simpler. You just have to know what paperwork to get. Now, the first thing you need is a contract, right? So this is just the, 1 to 4 residential contract. You could, I haven't done it, but you can do commercial real estate and, farm and ranch. And, you can buy, gold and I don't know what all things you can buy. I've only bought real estate with my self-directed IRA, but I start off with a contract, right? Because I'm getting the property under contract. I've done my, due diligence. And you'll notice, so KBN Homes LLC is the name of my company that I purchase investment properties, right? So, and you'll notice I have an and or assigns because I'm always thinking as I'm, talking to the seller, I'm like, maybe I'll use my self-directed IRA, or maybe I'll, get a private money lender, or maybe I'll wholesale it. And so in Texas, you can assign the contract. And so when a seller, if anybody's asking, what does the seller say? I just let them know I have multiple ways I buy properties. And sometimes I have to change the name of, who's buying the property if it's not my company. And this should make a little bit better sense because here's the amendment. So you do all the paperwork, for, getting the property under contract. You've done your due diligence. And now you're like, oh, you know what? I am going to buy that with my self-directed IRA. And the way you do that is you just simply do an amendment. Again, this is a truck form. And this has I think you can change the sales price here and you can ask for repairs. But you'll notice in number 9, it says other modifications. And I use this all the time with Quest. So the name of the buyer is changed to the contract originally had the buyer was KBN Homes LLC. So now I've made the decision that I'm going to have my self-directed IRA purchase this property. So you'll see that there's actually 3 self-directed IRAs on here. So you've got Quest Trust Company for the benefit of, which is FBO, Nancy Wallace Lobbs account number with an undivided interest of 75%. And then my husband and I actually are going in on this property. So we're using 3 separate self-directed IRAs to buy one property. So the first thing we have to do is change who is buying who is buying the property. And this is the first step. You do an amendment, and this then once you've completed the amendment, you've had the seller sign off, you sign it as, and then Quest actually has to sign this as well. And this is just the start of the paperwork that goes back and forth. And I'm going to kind of talk about those percentages here in another slide. So just hang tight with me, okay? Now, you know what? I will say this, and Sarah and, everybody at Quest, you guys make it so simple. So this is just a screenshot of my Quest Trust portal. And the reason I pulled this up is because I get asked a lot, like, well, what's the paperwork and what do you do? And if you've never done it before, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to show you where you go to get this paperwork. So you have your Quest Trust company and, you have all this information. And when you log on to your portal, you go up to the top and there's literally a drop down tab that says forms. And that's what you're going to do. So you're going to pull up this screen and you're going to click on forms. And then there's going to be a list of forms and you just read down them. We're not talking about fee schedules a day or anything, but you'll notice the 1, 2, 3, 4th one down, it says purchasing an asset. So that's what I'm doing. I'm purchasing an asset. I'm purchasing real estate. So when you click on that, that'll get you into the next form. Now, I kind of want to say something here before I move on. You'll notice right underneath that, paying for expenses. So let's say that I was buying a rental and I had to, pay the property taxes, pay the insurance, pay the utilities. So this is where you would go for paying expenses, right? There's a form that you have to fill out that basically you're giving Quest Trust Company instructions about, hey, I need to take this much money out of the account to pay, an electric company or your property taxes or your insurance. And this is important because, you're not taking a distribution. So this is very, very important. When you use, let me just go to the next screen. When you use right there at the top, direction of investment for real estate. So this is saying I am purchasing real estate, or in the example of, paying an expense. Because people will ask me, well, if you take the money out, do you get taxed on it or do you pay a penalty? The answer is no, because I personally never get the money. It's going from Quest Trust Company at closing, wired to the title company, just like you would, so think of Quest Trust Company as that third party. They're paying it. Well, your IRA is paying it. So we're going to get more into the direction here in a second. But Quest, this is after I click the screen. So what you do is you just go, okay, look, this is what they're going to need. They're going to need a copy of the warranty deed. They're going to need a copy of the HUD-1 settlement statement. They're going to need the purchase and sales contract. Now, when I first start this process, I don't have the settlement statement, right? Because I haven't actually closed on the property. I don't have the warranty deed yet because we haven't closed. The attorney hasn't made it. But I do have the purchase and sales contract, and I had my amendment. So I can actually fill out my direction of investment and my purchase and sales contract and get that over to Quest to start the ball rolling. Now, this is what the direction of investment for real estate looks like. I was going to fill this all out, but I thought, well, you know what, I'll just kind of go through here. And this is being recorded, so you can always go back and go, what was she talking about here? So you're just going to put in account holder info. You're just going to put in your name. Now, notice right above where it says account holder information says Quest Trust Company, FBO, for the benefit of account holder's name, IRA, SHA, so you're giving Quest Trust Company the information and saying, hey, I'm getting ready to purchase this property. So it's going to be your name and then your account number. If you don't know what an inherited IRA is, you just put no here. And then you're just simply going to check what type of IRA you have. So in the example that I'm showing you that we're going to be talking about today, Brian and I had to do 3 of these because why? We're using 3 different self-directed IRA accounts to purchase this property in the case study today. Now, how would you like to pay your fees? Now, I always recommend, having a credit card on file. Don't pay your fees from your self-directed IRA. That kind of defeats the purpose of, building the retirement and things like that. So I always say, you know what, you have a credit card on file. Now, I will say in this example that we're going to go over today, so I say, yes, I'm going to pay with my credit card on file. But the way I do properties, I typically have the seller pay the fees at closing. So we'll kind of go over that here in a second. And then there at the bottom, investment details. So this is where you're going to put the property address, right? And then how much you're buying it for, the contract price, and then the projected closing date. Okay, so that's just the information of the account holder, and the account holder is going to be purchasing a property. Now, the warranty deed is so you're closing, and this just says, okay, this is, I'm purchasing this property. And the way we bought the property for $60,000. And I took 50 out of my self-directed IRA, and Brian had 5,000 and 5,000, right? Now, Quest Trust Company does not, they don't give you the percentages, right? Because 75,000 or 75% is not quite the 50,000. But we decided to make it easy, because when we get into the numbers and the dollars, you'll see why I did this. So since I had the majority from my SEP IRA going towards this property, we just said, Brian and I made the decision, okay, you're going to own your IRA will own 75%, and then his two smaller ones of 5,000 each will own 12.5%. It's called an undivided interest. So you'll see we are first lien position on the property with our IRAs, but by a percentage. So the larger IRA at 50,000 was 75%. And again, Quest doesn't tell you that. They won't give you that. It's not that they won't give it to you, but you make the determination. And then through that direction of investment, that's what you're going to put on your paperwork. Now, the process requires a direction of investment for each self-directed IRA used in the transaction. So when we purchased this property, we were using 3 separate self-directed IRAs. So that meant we needed 3 separate directions of investments, that form I just showed you. Now you get to configure the percentage of ownership, right? And what I like to do, this is how I do my paperwork, but I like to list in order the highest to the lowest. So my SEP IRA is going to be listed first on all the paperwork. The reason I'm saying this is that that what was on the amendment about who's 75%, 12.5% is going to be on multiple documents. So you want it to be consistent throughout, because it's just easier for the people who are viewing it. One thing I will say, check to make sure the spelling of the names and the account numbers are correct. This is actually, let's say that they spelled my name Nance instead of Y. Well, it can get all the way to almost you're ready to have everything signed and closed, and then they'll say, oops, it's spelled wrong. So it has to be accurate. The account numbers have to be accurate. So what I do is I usually put an attachment with a spreadsheet with the breakdown, what IRA, so it'll be my IRA, how much money it is, the undivided interest, and then I copy and paste that, so that it's the same throughout. Now, granted, I have to make sure it's correct the first time I enter it, and I'm going to show you an example of what I'm talking about. I think, okay. So here's how I want to put it all together for you. So remember at the beginning, I said, okay, I always look at different exit strategies. So this particular property was a referral to me. It was a distressed seller. They'd moved out, hadn't really been on the market. I think it was just, getting ready to go off the market. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I always put this information. This is the basic information. So I ran the rents. And I said, okay, it's $850 a month I could get from rentals. And the sales for this property was around $97,000. And remember, I was buying this property for $60,000. Oh, I think these got out of order somehow. I'm sorry. Okay, I might have to come back and forth to show you this. Yeah, I think I will. Yeah, it got out of order there. Okay, but we'll go back. If you have questions, we can always pull it back up. But one thing I did want to show you is see how I have everything on here. The Quest Trust Company for the benefit of 75%. And this is a real estate lien note that I had. So what I did with this property is I ended up purchasing it for $60,000. And then I did an owner finance. I felt like the long-term rental, these were the only 2 exit strategies that made sense. It wasn't going to be a flip. It wasn't going to be an Airbnb. And the reason I really like owner finance properties is I typically do no work to them. And this house needed no work. It was basically, I bought it as is and I resold it as is. So my purchase price was $60,000. I used $50,000 from my SEP IRA. Brian used $5,000 from his traditional, and he also has a Roth that had $5,000. We owner financed the property for $95,000. So step back. I said, okay, I'm buy this property as is for $60,000. And we then sold the property for $95,000, right? And I really had a buyer lined up. A lot of times when I do these, I know, because it does take probably 2-3 weeks minimum to buy a property with your self-directed IRA, just because of the paperwork and back and forth. And if you're working with a title company, it can actually be longer. So I can actually advertise to find an owner finance buyer while I'm buying the property, right? So our terms were we collected a $9,500 down payment, and the buyer is paying 9.5% interest for the next 15 years. Now, I want to kind of go through this part because now we're going to get into numbers. So 2 things that kind of mess me up in life are computer glitches. I had the other day, something happened. I learned a valuable lesson when you dismantle a website and then I didn't have any Gmail for like 3 days. So anyway, so on this particular deal, selling it for 95. So I've already so I sold it for 60, and equity wise, I've already ahead $35,000, right? Because I sold it to her for 95. I collected $9,500 when we signed the contract when I sold it. And the monthly payments ended up being about $891. So the second part is the dollars and cents. So when I said, okay, I'm going to make my SEP 75% undivided interest, it was for the math because it made the math very, very easy. Now, if I keep this note and she, doesn't default or anything like that, over the next 15 years, she's going to pay, in addition to the $95,000, she's going to pay $81,000 in interest. Okay. That money is going into our IRAs. And I have a sheet here that I want to show you of how that's going to break down. So this is the month. So percentage of the purchase. So my SEP is owning 75%. The traditional IRA for Brian owns 12.5%, and the Roth owns 12.5%. So that $891, you just take it times 75%, you take it by 12.5%, and then that gives you the amounts every month that are going into our individual IRAs. Now I'm just going to stop there for a second, because when I said you can configure the percentages, no, this is what you as the account holder get to do. Quest isn't going to say, okay, well, you have to, take this much money and put, they just need the direction of investment, right? So they get this information. I do it on a spreadsheet for the Quest Trust and the title company and say, okay, this is how much every month. Now, does the buyer that I sold the property to have to send in a separate check? No. So to make it even easier, I actually set up a loan servicing company. So the buyer pays her $891 a month. The check goes to Quest Trust Company. Quest Trust Company, I don't know, in their accounting or their back end, they say, okay, we got this $891 for the benefit of, it's made out to Quest Trust Company for the benefit of, Nancy Wallace-Lobb's SEP at 75%. So we're going to put $668.25 in her account. Now, the reason I'm kind of droning on about this is I had a person that I was working with on becoming a private money lender. And, you have to do your rounding, right? Like you can't have Quest go, okay, it's $668 and 0.33333. That it has to make sense from a monetary standpoint that they can put the money into your account, because the Quest Trust Company is not going to, that's what the direction of investments for. They're not going to get that $891 and guess at how much money should go into this account and how much should go into this account. So you as the account holder have to direct how the funds will go back into your account. And so that's part of the direction of investment. Now, I hope you can see this. I tried really hard to, there's going to be a couple of Excel, put the pictures on here. But the first column is the self-directed IRA. So we purchased the property. If you can read across here, we purchased the property for $60,000. So what I did is I have a SEP for 50, another traditional IRA, and a Roth IRA that we pulled money out in terms of purchasing the property. So that equaled the $60,000. We owner financed the property for $95,000. Right? We said, okay, we sold it to her for 95. But you'll notice that we financed 92,150. And why did I do that? So you would think, I don't have a calculator here. I'm sure somebody, if you took 95,000 and she gave us, a 10% down payment, that's 9,500, which should be, make it around 87, 84, something like that. Well, because I had her pay all the closing costs on both sides, right? So she reimbursed me. Remember, I was talking about the fees. So we applied those funds from her down payment to our fees. So I didn't have to take out any more money from my SEP. So typically, and that's how I structured this owner finance deal. And that's the cool thing about owner financing, is that you can structure it any way you want, and the buyer can either accept the terms or not. So in this case, I structured it so that her down payment went to the closing costs that you have to pay when you close on a property. Now, from the down payment, to kind of explain that more, after all the closing costs, were paid for, then what you have down here is that $2,137.50. So that was what was left over after she paid the closing costs on both sides, right? So I had her reimburse. And the way you do this is you close with the same title company. So we closed, and basically she covered my costs for both my purchase and then her purchase, right? So that amount, the $2,137, what was left over, and you take that number, and remember the first account here, the $356.25, that's what went back into the SEP account. So the SEP account was 75% undivided interest. So of that 2,100 and some change, then I got 356. Brian got I think, oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. The 21,000 went in there. So that's okay. So you'll see that I'm kind of confused. I can't even read my own writing here. But I kind of wanted to show you at the if you look over at the end here. So after the course, the ending balance, right? So at the end of the day, if she holds this for 15 years, she'll pay like $347,000. That $5,000 at the end of 15 years will be $21,000. But my SEP, because it had 75%, will be, I started out with 50, it'll be 129 in 15 years, right? So let's say that you have a child that's 5 years old, and you want to set up or let's see, maybe 3, because you have it for 15 years, they'd be 18, getting ready to go to college. And this is just one property. The cool thing about the self-directed IRA is you can actually own more than one property in an individual self-directed IRA account. So I hope that made sense. I guess the bottom line is that it's a good way to build your self-directed IRA, and all of that money that's in there is not taxed. Now, again, I'm not a financial planner, but I kind of wanted to show you here on this. The buyer paid all the closing costs. So when buying properties with a self-directed IRA, remember all your expenses and income must go through the self-directed IRA, including closing costs, inspections, and repairs. So I already knew this. I had already done a few deals, so I already knew that. So I wanted to structure my next deal where I didn't have to pay all of those through my self-directed IRA. I got my owner finance buyer. Because I will tell you, when I use my self-directed IRA, 9 times out of 10, my go-to strategy is owner finance when I'm going to use my self-directed IRA. And the other reason I like owner finance is I sold it as is. And so pretty much all the properties I've done owner finance and use my self-directed IRA, I have made no repairs. And if some of you have followed me, you know of my deal where I used $5,000 to buy a property. And I had a partner. We paid $10,000 for a property in historic Fort Worth. It's like the most famous deal. I've been published about it. Ken Corsini, that's from HGTV Atlanta, Flip or Flop, and he has a new show now. I'm in chapter 12 of that book, but really it was all about buying a property and using your self-directed IRA. And now that property, that was probably four years going on 5 years. And every month I get a check for that $5,000 investment. And the cool thing was we made it 20% down. So I got my $5,000 initial investment right back. And now all of that is just gravy going into my self-directed IRA. And I put this down here. The reporting sale income is different. Now, I just know how my accountant is doing my taxes, right? I'm not a CPA, but because these properties are in my self-directed IRA, they don't go through my company. They're not on my tax return. They're not on any K1 because they're in my self-directed IRA. Because remember, Nancy does not own those properties. Nancy's company does not own those properties, her self-directed IRA. So when I take a distribution, because purchasing on an investment property is not the same as taking a distribution, then it will be taxed. And, I've done deals where I made on one deal like over $40,000 in less than a year. And if I had just flipped that house, I'd be paying a whole lot more income tax. But what I did is I just left it in the account, and then I can take it out, 5,000 here, 10,000 here. What I'm saying? I get taxed. I get to control that. So I do want to go back before I end, because I'm looking at the time here and I want to be the deed of trust. I kind of wanted to show you this. So this is when we sold the property and what it looks like. And what I want to point out here is that, so we purchased the property and then we used a title company, and you'll notice this Quest Trust Company, FBO, mine is always listed first, right? I did this on the real estate lien note, right? It's listed first. And so what I do is I actually create a document that becomes sort of an amendment to help the title company and the Quest Trust Company folks that are overlooking the properties. Because you have to remember, they're dealing with tons and tons of these, like tons of people. They have to make sure the paperwork's right and that kind of thing. So you just want to make sure that you're giving them the right information. You can see Quest Trust Company, FBO, and then it has Nancy, Brian. I guess those were two of mine. So, but it's the same on all the documents. All right. So I did want to leave you with this. So I hope all that made sense. But if you want more information, I do want to let you know, because I've been doing this, I've been teaching people. I do have a self-directed IRA online course. And I call it my wealth building strategy. So I go through all of the case studies I've done, all the JV agreements, how to buy a property. If you want to learn how to become a private money lender, you actually work directly with me. And then I have a monthly membership where we just talk about, everything self-directed IRA, private money, how to vet deals, just giving you how to analyze if you're going to work with the self-directed IRA. So if that's something that you're interested in, then email me, because I am running a special for all the people who attended or see this presentation. So the price is normally like $14.97, but I'm giving a webinar price of $4.97. But you do have to use the coupon code Quest Trust. So if this is something that you want more information on, or you just want to schedule a call with me to talk about if this would be right for you, then just email me. That's why my email is all in here, nancy@kbnhomes.com, and just put in the subject line self-directed IRA, and that you're interested in the course or scheduling a call with me. One of the things that I have really helped people do is build their own private money lender list. And one of the things is also about how you can use as little as $100 to purchase property. So it's a great course. I've had a lot of people taking it because they want to learn how they can build wealth into their self-directed IRA and, hopefully avoid taxes for a while on that money and, build some really good wealth. So I hope, I want to just say thank you everybody for taking part on this Saturday, this chilly Saturday. There's my email, Nancy@KBN Homes. And you know what? I can see I just did please. You have to forgive me on the spelling there. But you know what? Go to my YouTube channel. I have a lot of videos, not only on self-directed IRAs, but on a bunch of other stuff. And please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of March. So please help a gal out. You can follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook, or on Instagram at Nancy Wallace Lobb. So thanks again, everyone, for attending. Happy investing. Reach out if you have any questions, and love to hear from you.
All righty. Can you guys hear me? I think so, probably. So I'm going to go ahead and run through some questions for you, Nancy.
Okay. It's good to see you when you're making these presentations. I don't see anybody. So, hey, everybody.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing from the laptop. Normally we have like the double screens. This is the first time I was doing it with the one screen, and I just kind of feel like, you're talking to yourself. But we do actually have a lot of questions, a lot of participation going on here.
Great. Love it. Love it.
So I'm just gonna run through them. So, and you actually, I think you might have touched on this a little bit more, but they asked you to elaborate. So I was told that a property can be financed with a non-recourse loan. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
Okay, I will. And I have gotten it, and I don't know if you're the person that has called me about this. To my knowledge, I have not ever found that to be true. I have not found that you can, because I tried it. This is why I, believe that this is the correct answer. I could be, maybe they changed the rules, but I tried to buy a property and I had $50,000 to put down. I was going to finance the rest, and I was told I couldn't do it. So if you do find that information, and then somebody called me about it a few months ago, and I did a little digging, and I couldn't find that you could do that. So that would probably be for Quest Trust Lunch and Learn question.
Yeah, we do have we've got a couple classes about non-recourse loans. There are certain types of loans that IRAs can get. There are some kind of, stipulations, and sometimes they may or may not. So that could have been the case. But I have seen some clients, they are able to get financing. They're from NASB could be one. But I will let you guys know, just like Nancy said, we do have lunch and learns all about those classes. I'll post that in the comments if you guys want to.
Yeah, because I think too, it like you said, it depends on the type of property and the use and all of that. I don't think you can just go out and buy I know for me, I was looking at buying an Airbnb, and I wanted to, get the loan, and I was told that no, I can't do it. So it could be that it has to make sense, whatever the investment is. So yeah, but if y'all find out, get back with us and let us know, because I'd love to do that too.
Absolutely. So we've got one from Bill, and actually I'm going to pull them up so that way we can broadcast them. So do you know if you do you know if there are issues with CFPB rules when lending to homeowners? I'm not familiar with that, so maybe
So I'm going to just have to defer on that one too. That would be something more of a for their homestead. I'm going to say I don't know. And that would be another, more of a lending question. And it gets into the regulations and things like that. And I want to say, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I have no idea if this is correct or not, but I don't think you can use your self-directed IRA to buy your own house, like a homestead, because it has to be a hands-off transaction. So you couldn't use it for that purpose. So that's what I'm thinking, Sarah. So I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I don't think you can go use it for your homestead.
Yeah, you want to be able to use your IRA funds for your your own personal deals. There are certain rules about first time home buying, but that's kind of getting into other things, and I don't think that that's what this is about. So, here's one. Your SDIRA returns are gross, correct? do they not include your note with the owner? Maybe this was for a case study.
Okay, well, maybe, okay, so we paid 60 for the house and then I sold it for 95. So I'm getting the 95 plus the interest that she's paying. Does that make sense? So yes, does that not include, because I don't have a note because I paid basically cash. I didn't owe anything on the house, right? I used my funds from my self-directed IRAs to go buy the house. So when she purchased it from me, so yes, I guess, I'm getting the 60 back. And that's what I was saying. I'd have 35, equity from what I bought it to what so let's say I flipped it and I made 35,000, right? But she's paying me interest at 9.5%, 10% over 15 years. So you get that amount plus the 35 and then you're 60. So the value of the IRA then went up, if that makes sense.
Yep. I love this question because we get this, people ask us how to do this all the time. So if you purchase a rental with your self-directed IRA and it has maintenance and repairs, how does that work money-wise?
Okay, money-wise, it has to go through your self-directed IRA. So there's a direction of investment on that form on the slideshow when I was talking about the asset purchase line. Right underneath that, there was pay expenses. And you have to, complete a form, send it into Quest Trust Company and say, pay, ABC Plumbing $5,000. So number one, you have to have the money in your self-directed IRA. So it's that's why I talk about the exit strategy. So let's say that I bought that property for $60,000 and I was going to turn it into a rental and let's say it needed 10,000 and I didn't have 10,000 in any of my other IRAs. So, what am I going to do? I mean, I could get a private money lender, but I personally can't pay for it because that if I did, I would be breaking the rules, right? And if you get audited, there's like stiff penalties for stuff like that. So I don't know what the IRS would do, but you have to have the money in the self-directed IRA. And that's why for me, rentals don't work that well, just because for that very fact, you know what I mean? Like if you have if you get everything set up, like on a long-term rental and you have the funds in there and then you have auto draft, if you have a mortgage payment or whatever it is, maybe, or not a mortgage payment, but for utilities and things like that. So I could see it working more on an Airbnb. Because Airbnb, like I do Airbnbs. So I don't have any of my self-directed IRA yet, but the way it would work is everything that I pay is auto drafted from my bank account. And so the cost that I incur, like for furnishing it and things like that, but I could have that easily directed right out of my self-directed IRA every month. So you just have to think about it when you're doing your exit strategy. And if you don't have the funds in your account, then you need to figure out a different way, or you can, maybe, this is what I tell people, so let's say you have a property that needs like $6,500 worth of repairs and you're a certain bracket and you can go open up another IRA. You can do that. You can have multiple IRAs. That's what my husband and I did. He actually has a 401k. So we're like, okay, well, let's just open you up a couple, $5,000 IRAs, and we've been using that, right? So there's nothing that says you can't. Is there any rules that you can't have, more than, I know I have a couple, he has a couple, so.
Yeah, you can partner all those IRAs and,
Yep, you sure can. And then in the case of the rental, and I have done this before where I've bought in properties, so I've bought them and I've used other people's money from their self-directed IRA to purchase, right? And then I've done owner finance and I didn't use any of my self-directed IRA, but I'm still using self-directed IRA money. And that's just a different strategy.
Love that. This is a great question, and I'm gonna probably round it out with this one because you mentioned it, and it's something that we get calls all the time, and unfortunately, we can't provide. So, for this question, the gentleman asked, how can I find your private money lender list?
Oh, well, you have to take my course because I actually teach you how to make your own private money lender list. So I've been putting people together. I had an article in Forbes about my first time I did this. So there's a vetting. It's all relationship based. So I have people call me up all the time. And so I would not give you my private money lender list because I don't know who you are. I mean, maybe you are somebody I know, but so I do work as a connector to connect people, but I've had brand new investors call me and want to use I just had a call a couple of weeks ago. They wanted to, get in touch with my private money lenders. Well, first of all, I vet the deal, right? Because these are people I use on an ongoing basis and they trust me. So if I don't know you and I don't know what you're investing and I haven't vetted you, I'm just not going to turn over my list. But you can learn how to build your own private money list, and I teach you in my course.
Perfect. And if you do want to get that course, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the contact information for Nancy right here. If you guys have more in-depth questions, you want to get in contact with her, want to take this class, or want to see her at our event, this is her contact information. You can get registered, of course, for our event on our website. But Nancy, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Sarah.
We've had, like as you have seen, there's just so many people in the comments today that have really been interested and engaged in your class. So I know that it's a little bit over one. We're kind of going over, so I won't keep you guys too much longer. But if you guys do have any more questions, reach out to Nancy. She is a wealth of knowledge. And Nancy, thank you for being with us today.
And thank you, everybody who gave up their Saturday. I really do appreciate it. And, it is, I know some of this stuff, I just want to say this in closing, is it seems overwhelming and really difficult, but it's really about learning the process. And once you learn the process, you will be amazed, and you will just be amazed at how easy it is. And I'm not making it like light, but when I started first going to the lunch, I was like, what are they talking about? and so what I've done is I've bundled all that stuff together because it was a great resource. But then people that take the course, then I kind of shorten their learning curve, and it took me like years, right, to learn some of these strategies. And the more you do it, the more creative you can become. And then when you start having your own private money, because one of the things with real estate investors is they just run out of money. They can't get loans, and private money lenders, I still use hard money lenders from time to time, but my private money lenders have made it so I can scale my business. You know what I mean? Because it's like an unlimited supply of funds, and it's just a matter of paperwork. And the reason I say about the course is because when I do take on people in the private money, this is what I've learned. They don't understand the process, and it kind of holds up everybody else. So let's say I had a gal that had $4,000, and we were putting her together, 6 other people. Well, we got to the closing table, and I had handheld her, all the way. And, she called me after we closed, and she was all freaked out about, well, how am I getting my money back? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, wait, we went over this. There's the deed of trust. So it's really, I decided that people have to kind of learn it so that they know it. Right. And then it's like teaching the man to fish, so you can always eat on your own.
I love that. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Or a woman. So.
Yes, we're fishing.
But I am. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. All righty, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Nancy, thank you so much as well. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we will see you on our next class. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.